I shared a little bit earlier that I was very proud of this little introduction. I normally wouldn't read it, but I thought this webinar deserved it. So hi, and welcome to everyone to the Automation Reality Check. So my name is Dennis Stafford, and I'm the founder and principal consultant of our company, Organic Soul. And if you're considering automation, if you have robot headaches or something in between, you're in the right place. And if we can't answer your question, perhaps we can fix your car. Uh, Miss Denise, in another life, was actually a fully certified car mechanic. And my vintage 2025 Ford Focus can attest to her ability. I always tell people that the car was made by Ford, but it was improved by German engineering. So here at Organic Soul, we value human connection. We value integrity in how we do business and in delivering practical solutions that solve real problems. So your host, Denise, has a background that perfectly bridges the gap between the shop floor and the boardroom. She holds a master's in business administration and economics, along with a diploma in industrial engineering. Today, she acts as an automation realist, championing human-centric automation to help manufacturers align the sterile engineering ideal of work as imagined with the messy reality of work as done. Even more germane to today's topic, she's a 20-year veteran of the robotics industry. So whether you're just starting your automation journey or trying to fix a stalled deployment, you are in excellent hands today. I want you to join me in welcoming my business partner and host for today, Denise Stafford.
Thank you so much, Dennis, for the nice introduction. Um, and because he introduced me so nicely, I don't have to do it again. But I want to get started. First of all, welcome you all. I'm really, really appreciative that you're here. And I want to tell you a little story how I even got to this human side of automation. So it was a couple of years back, and I was asked to be participant of a panel about AMRs, autonomous mobile robots, which was like my last 10 years of my life was about AMRs. So I had a little pre-meeting with the moderator, and he asked me this question. He said, Denise, why are pilot projects with AMRs not scaling? So first of all, I thought, oh, he's right. That was a few years back. Now it's different. So, but the second thing that came to my mind was people. And I couldn't figure out why this came into my mind, people. So I went through all my pilot projects, which were plenty, and thought about why did I think about people? And I found a lot of examples, but I want to give you two. The first example was a really great fit for an AMR. It made sense on so many different levels. The space was a little tight. So it was running into the aisle, but once in a while, an operator also had to share this aisle, so it stopped. Unfortunately, the people who did all these calculations underestimated how often operators have to come in, so it stopped way too many times for this application to make sense. The second example I want to give you is that a lot of these pilot projects were not a good fit in the first place. So the AMRs and the application, it was not a fit. But because management, which are people, forced this on the floor and on the people on the floor, they did it. So these are only two of the reasons. So I started to go in this quest. I thought, what is it with this human side of automation? So I read a lot of studies. I talked to a lot of people. And first of all, I discovered so much more human in automation than even I imagined. So there's humans everywhere. But the second thing I found out that this is nothing really new to the people I talk to. So people in the industry know that there is like a people problem, but they don't know what to do with that. So they ignore it, they think more technology can solve it. So what I want to give you in this presentation, a few how not only, where are the humans, but also what are a few little things that you can actually do. So I really try to give you some practical things along the way that you might be able to use even tomorrow. So before I get started, or let me start with doing my sharing my screen so that you can see my presentation here. So automation reality check, as Dennis already said. So before I talk, I want to hear from you with a little poll. So what are challenges that you face in your automation project? So I will pull up a little poll here. And I have some pre-answers. Think about the 1 to 3 biggest things that you face as a challenge in your automation project. Do you face all the time the costs are just too high? Do you struggle with estimating the costs and efforts to automate? Is there a lack of automation skill levels that is a challenge to your project? Do you face a lot of resistance to change in general? Or are you running into IT and software problems more than you would like to? So let me give you a few more seconds. Okay, so let me end the poll here. So let me share what, the people who answered the poll actually said. So it seems costs are not necessarily your issue, but how do I really estimate better what it costs to automate? And these are costs and efforts, right? Resources. Lack of automation skill levels is next. And then some people also struggle with resistance to change in IT software problem. So let me show you what I prepared for today. And I think you will get some ideas about how to deal with some of your challenges. So a lot of ask about the expectation versus real cost. So I want to start with the math because I really want to make one thing very clear. Even though I talk about the human side, I do not talk about, oh, out of the goodness of our heart, we have to love each other. We have to, but it has to make financial sense. And it makes more financial sense if I consider the human side. So the math is important. I will start with that. How do I think about the hidden costs in these standard calculations? So we talk about this. Then, how do I now find out? How do I find these hidden costs? How do I talk better with people? So how do I find the truth? Which I will talk about asking the right questions. And then I want to just in general talk about how do I now think human? How do I consider the human side of automation? I want to give you some key elements of understanding that will help you to find these human elements. So let's start with the math. If you go online, you will find these automation ROI calculations. And I looked at them up, and that's basically what you get. So you get on the left side, I just made it a little with colors, but that's mainly what you get. On the left side, you have your manual operation per year. In this example, you have 2 workers, 2 shifts. The inefficiency, so people taking sick days, having a break. In this case, it's 28%. So in this example, $230,000 is your manual production cost per year. Then you fill out this little calculator. You can put in, you do still need some manual work. In this example, 10%. You have to power the robots. You have to do some maintenance. So it's about $24,000. $24,000 per year is way less than $230,000. So per year it makes sense. So now you have to take into account that you have to buy the robots, in this example, $250,000. So in 15 months, you break even, and then over 5 years, you save about $800,000. So this is like the standard way of calculating things. So I know that people on this call come from a real background. So, and if you now think about these simple calculation, and to be fair, they do make disclaimers, right? So, but what are things that you have seen or in your reality that you didn't see in this example? So I want to do another quick poll. And I, again, pre-selected the answer, so you just have to click the ones that you encountered. So what are shop floor realities that you know of, but they are not in this example? So do you typically walk the floor to understand the manual process better? Are there facility modifications sometimes necessary, like power, air, or the floor? Um, Do you ever have to do some middleware interface integration because the software that comes with the automation doesn't really talk to the things that are on the floor and you need that? Have you ever encountered that other departments suddenly request changes? For example, IT might come up with something, safety department suddenly steps in and say, yeah, I don't think it's so much safer. Are there training costs that are important to consider too? And does it often take a little time up until the automation is actually really running 100%? So what have you encountered? So I give you a few more seconds. Hey, very interesting. So let me end the poll and then show you what people answered. So interesting enough, the middle fair handshaking is the one that's encountered most, followed by facility modification and then other departments. And then the others are important too. So let me now go on, and I call it the reality update. And these are mainly the points that I had in this little poll. I just want to highlight a few things. So of course, all of the things can be relevant. I don't say they are always relevant, but they can be. The one I really want to highlight is understand the manual process better. If you do it by walking the floor, if you do it by however you do it, the better you understand the manual process, the better fit the automation will be, the less problems you will have later. And I will come back to this idea. The things you might miss in the beginning cost you way, way, way more money later. I want you to keep that in mind. Also, going through this exercise to thinking about your manual process, if you do it with an open mind, you might find out at that point in time, I don't even need a robot. I might just, if I do a tweak here, if I change this for what I need at that time, that already get me to a better place. And you still can do your automation later and you set the foundation for it. Regarding safety and safety departments, everybody should know it by now, but even if you buy a cobot, please think about the safety. They are not just safe out of the box. Facility modifications, the one I want to highlight because my specialty is autonomous mobile robots. Really think about the floor conditions. We maybe bring the AMR supplier and say, you run a test on my floor to make sure that the floor is really a fit. Middleware integration, you all identified as the problem. Regarding IT upgrades, I want to again point to AMRs. This is like a big IT project. If you have anything IT, don't wait for the last minute to bring your IT people in. really from the very beginning. I know it's hard. I know it's annoying because you're so excited because robotics is exciting. It is exciting, all this technology, but you need the IT people specifically for AMR. So don't wait till the last moment or the robots arrive and just think I just present them with the fact and then they have to help me and then ramp up in efficiency. So this is like everything in the beginning. And then other things that might come later or that come later, like training. And I want to highlight the training part, which you identify too. It's not always the case, but in a lot of companies, the maintenance group is really good in fixing things like car mechanic, right? But anything laptop, they might be scared of. So really think in your budget to budget enough money to make sure you have enough budget to train people and keep the knowledge up. So I have here worker turnover. If somebody leaves the company, you cannot just train one person and hope the best. So I heard from people in the industry that they struggle a lot with you have the money for the years for the first invest. You can keep it running for 1 or 2 years, and then they're running out of funds because nobody considered the importance of keep it running because everybody was excited. So that also might mean service and support from your vendor. At some point, the what's the name? You run out of guarantee time and all that. So you might want to consider that. And even if you train your people, there might be some incidences where you do need experts coming in. We now by now know everything about software subscriptions. And then I do want to be fair. They are not only hidden costs, but there are hidden benefits. But because the industry narrative tells you everything about benefits, I don't think I have to tell you the benefits. I want to give you one. I said, especially anything laptop can be scary to your people, but it also can be an advantage if you want to attract young people into manufacturing. So it can be both, benefit or, scare people away. Now, I told you, keep in mind, later there are things coming up. The most expensive later is unexpected downtime. And I pulled some statistics what it costs. And these are costs per hour. For a small manufacturer, it starts between $10,000 and $25,000 per hour. A mid-market manufacturer, it can end up in 100,000 per hour, and then it goes up. So if you think about this little example I had earlier, which you saved over 5 years, $800,000, you can ruin a 5-year savings in 8 hours, right? In one shift, you can ruin 5 years of savings. So first of all, you want to think upfront about what will be my downtime costs in the future and maybe have some, backup plans and so on. But really specifically thinking about the human side, the more you include the people from the very beginning, the less you will have trouble later. Because if you think you can hide the automation that comes in from your people because you are scared about their, reaction, it will cost you so much more money later. So don't play games. Okay, so to summarize the math, the goal should be to minimize the gap between expectation and reality. But there will always be a gap. And that's okay, because what we do is we predict the future. If we predict the future, we have to make a lot of assumptions. And that's okay. But we have to be aware we have a lot of assumptions in there. And a lot of assumptions are done by people. So how can we minimize the gap? So here are a few thoughts I have around that. So first of all, design with the operators and not for them. They have a lot of expertise. They do this process day in, day out for years, maybe. So really get the operators and help and help them to help you to design the application. Don't do it for them. What is needed for that? An environment of trust. I always say people, as humans, we have a bullshit sensor. People know if you are truthful, if you're sincere, or if you try to manipulate, specifically in 2026. So create an environment of trust, provide the necessary resources and knowledge, which also will add to this environment of trust, because if you're willing to spend time and resources, for example, to give them some understanding about the automation you're planning to come in, they say, oh, they might be serious because they're asking me and they're actually spending time and money to help me understand enough about this piece of technology that comes in that I can give them my opinion. It might be necessary to slow down. And I know this is a tough one because I will tell you over the talk once in a while about how we are wired in our brains. And we feel good. It's in our brain that we are fast. If we are fast, it just feels good. What do you think why we have these Formula One races? Because fast feels good. So sometimes we have to fight our own brain and how we are wired. So yes, you might want to wait for a couple of more weeks up until you are ready for this piece of automation to arrive on your shop floor. It might be worth it. So now that we talked a little bit about the math, you already saw that there are cases where you might have to want to talk to your operators to find the truth. So I now want to talk you through a little example I totally made up, not based on any reality, but it's based on the general reality of things to help you what I mean with asking the right questions. So let me introduce you to Max. Everybody knows a Max. Max is this young, dynamic project engineer. He's super excited about technology. He got this AMR project where the AMR will replace forklifts. And of course, as an engineer, he knows his facts. Okay, what are his facts? AMRs are safer for humans than forklifts. That's true. There are about 30,000 accidents only in the US per year with severe injuries. So it's obvious for him that everybody wants to have an AMR instead of a forklift, right? Because it's safer and everybody wants to be safe. So that fact he knows. He also knows he has the backing from the management because management loves AMRs. They are predictable. They will show up for work. People sometimes don't show up for work, and they are the future. Everybody's talking about AMRs are the future. And he also knows that his boss told him to ask the forklift driver for input. What's the best route in aisle 4? But on this point, he absolutely disagrees with his boss because he already knows. He knows that the fastest way in aisle 4 is go in the middle. So, but it's his boss, so he needs to talk to the forklift driver. So let me introduce to Joe. Joe is the forklift driver. So Joe also has a project. His project is he needs to pay his bills. He also knows his facts. He knows he needs this job because of his project paying his bills. He does know that management is working on an AMR project, and he knows that the project engineer needs information from him because Max invited him to meetings. He didn't show up. Why really? He is busy. He's a forklift driver, right? He doesn't have time for project meetings. Max also sent him surveys, which he ignored because I don't have time reading emails. I have to get my forklift running. So, but Max is now running into trouble because he now needs this piece of information because tomorrow is a meeting where I have to present the facts. So Max is pretty frustrated as you can see, because Joe didn't respond to his emails, didn't show up to meetings. So he thinks Joe is just really stubborn. Also, he doesn't think anyway that Joe has the answer because he already calculated that for I-4, you just drive in the middle. So now let's see how this conversation goes. So Max asked Joe, why haven't you filled out the route surveys for I-4? We need this by tomorrow. Joe answers, you know how busy we are. I gotta keep moving freight out here to prove I'm still useful to this company, you know? You're holding up the whole engineering schedule. So Max now puts peer pressure on him, right? You're holding out the whole schedule. And then he repeats facts because he knows it's facts. And Joe seems to have forgotten about the facts. They are, you know, we need the AMRs. They make everybody safer. Remember the accident we recently had? You just need to draw this route. So at this point, Joe just gave up and says, okay, the shorter the route, the better, right? Just let them run in the middle. That's the shortest route. I need to go back to work. So Max is satisfied. Joe proved he's stubborn and really tough to work with. And secondly, he was correct that he already knew you have to drive them in the middle, and that's the fastest way to go. So why even bothering, and why does his boss make this trouble? What Max does not know, that Joe would have had a piece of information that would have made Max's life a little easier in the future. Every time at 3 p.m., the welders end their shift. And because he's driving this aisle up and down every day, he knows if you go to the very right and slow down a little bit, he can still move. It's a little slower, but he don't have to stop. If the AMRs just go into the middle, they will, for safety reasons, just stop, and they will not be able to work for 20 minutes. So not that Max cannot fix that in the future, but you can see how it might have helped him. So now let's analyze. Let's go back to the beginning. I think I don't tell you any secrets that starting with why haven't you is not a good way to start a conversation. I call it, you activate with that the human autonomous defense system. We all know that back in our ancient brain, if you are attacked, you either fight or you flee. He cannot fight because he needs this job. So he just said, you know how busy we are. So why questions? Attacking people feels good. I talked about feeling good earlier. It feels good because you get your anger out, but it will most likely not help your case. Okay. Now, what could he have said? At least just be more kind. You know, I see you're pretty busy. You really need input. Is there any way you can spare a few minutes? Or I was just looking at this schedule and I couldn't find your input. Any idea when you might have time? So I don't have to go into that. You already know how to be kind. So now what I want to tell you is that the conversation might have gone exactly the same way. Why? Because Max had two assumptions. Remember? The first assumption is Joe is stubborn. And the second is, I already know I don't even have to listen. So that makes it even tougher to hear what Joe was actually saying, because Joe was giving Max a hint. And I don't know if you see it, I will highlight it in a second. What I want to say is, people more often than you think give you little hints. And if you listen closely and catch it and slow down and ask questions, you might be onto something. Because Joe tells him that he fears about his job to prove I'm still useful to this company. But because Max, and now back to my points about your brain and how your brain is wired, because the assumptions are like a filter, he literally did not hear it. If you would have put him under oath, he would deny that Joe ever said that, because your brain are perfect filters. If you have a strong assumption, you will literally not hear it or see it. So, but because he didn't hear it, he just restated the fact about the safety. But that's nothing that could convince Joe because that's not his problem. His problem is he needs this job. So if he would just stop and say, "Do I understand you correctly? You're worried that if you help me, you're not needed." And then he might say, "Yeah, why would I dig my own grave?" And then he might be able to assure him that, management signed off that they still need forklift drivers. So assumptions are really important to check. So if you want to ask better questions, I want to be very real. It will take you a while. So be patient with yourself too. But I do think I can you a first few steps to ask better questions, what you might want to consider. So first of all, trust is the most important to have good communication, have people tell you things. And I do know in the real world out there, it's not always possible because you might not be in an environment of trust, but you still can be trustworthy. So if you know that while management signed this, they are not truthful, you could be truthful with Joe and say, Joe, um, they say it and I understand. I can assure you for the next 1 or 2 years, your job will be safe. But, help me because this will come anyway, but I might help you find another job or whatever it is. The biggest point is you need to create an environment of trust. We already know, I mentioned it, judgmental why question or similar statements just doesn't help your case. Listen carefully and slow down if necessary, and understand your own biases and assumptions. And these assumptions can be very strong. I want to put a few out here. There are very strong narratives in the tech industry, in the automation industry, in the robotics industry. They have very strong narratives. You can identify them if somebody says, everybody knows that, fill your blanks. So what are some of them that I want to question at least once in a while? I do not say that they are never true. I just say these are very strong narratives and you might want to question them once in a while. The first I hear over and over, to save the world, the only option we have is to have a robot or AI. I want to question that's the only option we have on this planet Earth are robots and AI. A lot of problems can be solved, but no other options, I would doubt that. Some think workers will always reject technology. They just don't understand tech. Why even ask them? I wrote everything down. We have a really good documentation. Why even ask questions? We have everything in writings. That's better, right? And then the big one, I saw it on a trade show. I saw it running in this example application. I saw a video. It's super easy to use. We have to have it. These are just strong narratives. I want to make you aware that you are allowed to question them. Okay, so now that we talked about the math and how we might come closer to the truth, I want to talk a little bit more broadly. What does it mean to think human? Where is the human side of automation to be considered? A little from a different perspective now. So I first, again, want to underline, this is not just a feel-good thing, it's a financial thing. If you do not want to end up like Black & Decker, who had to close a whole plant after they invested $90 million in technology, then you might want to pay attention. Because one of the reasons, there are more than one reasons, of course, but one of the reasons were people. So first of all, when they announced it, that they bring all these robots in, of course, some people quit their jobs because what's the point? You want to maximize your automation. Why should I stay with you? I go around the corner. That means a lot of knowledge. I talked earlier about the process knowledge is gone. And then you have tasks that are tough to automate already, and the knowledge is gone. So that was a big contributing factor why they had to shut down the plant at the end. Really, this overestimation of technology and undervaluing the human capacity. And then in case you think, you know what, Denise, that is okay, but in the future, everything will be done by robots and AI. So why bother with the human side? Maybe it's true in the some kind of a future. What I can tell you, not in the foreseeable future. Uh, and that's not only Denise saying it. So there's a Future of Jobs report from 2025 from the World Economic Forum. And they just looked into different industries, and it's not so important the actual numbers. But you see in the dark blue, the share of tasks that are done predominantly by people today, and in a lighter blue, what they estimate the share of tasks done by people will be in 2030. And whatever the numbers are, I do not see 1-0. So for the foreseeable future, you will still be able have to deal with the human. So now, what are things that might help you if you think about the human? One thing I want you to understand, all technology is disruptive to work. It can be software, all technology. Why? Because even slight changes in work tasks and environment can yield a significant impact on dimensions of the human experience. How we experience something will change. That means motivation, satisfaction, fatigue, cognitive demand, all that might be changing. The question is, can we make this change in experience a good experience or bad experience? So the question in your next automation project might be, how will this automation project change the human experience? Why we can have a conversation if having 4 more arms in this little bit more extreme example is a good or a bad thing. I think what we can all agree on, if I have 4 more arms, robotic, that will change my human experience. So what's a practical application of that? So think about you have this application you want to automate. It's manual right now. Typically, you go out and you ask questions because you have to calculate the robots and all that. So you ask questions like, what's the weight of the parts? How often is a thing done? What are you doing step by step? And these are important questions. Please still continue to ask these questions. But now thinking about the human experience, you might want to add a few questions. For example, what do you have to fight every day that gives you a headache? Try to find out what are the tasks that they hate to do. If you brought a robot to do the worst part of your day, what's the one part of the job that you'd actually want to keep your hands on? That might give you an understanding what this person really likes to do. And a side note, everybody is different. The answers might be different depending on who you ask. If you follow the standard operating manual to the letter, how quickly would this line shut down? That goes back to my point. Oh, I have it in writing, right? I don't have to ask questions. Maybe at least you want to ask some questions to find out how well this documentation fits the reality. And then if we let a robot take over the step, how much time do you think you'll spend fixing its mistakes? This is just a different way to find out if they have some feeling, some understanding or some opinion on a robot might or might not be able to handle a certain task. And of course, the more knowledge you give to this person about what kind of automation comes in, the better he will be able to answer that question. And then, most importantly, you have to shut up, listen carefully, and check your assumptions. The one big assumption that we run into our whole life, never think that this specific person cannot add anything of value. You might hate this person might be the meanest person on earth, this might be a liar, but you have to stop for a moment and think if this one piece of information you get might actually be true and helpful. So you have to detach yourself from the person. That's one of the assumptions. But it's important to listen, stop and listen. It's okay to have a few seconds of silence because people are not always used to the fact that people are actually listening to them. One specific thing before I wrap up the talk. We all know that words matter, but I found this study that I really want to share because it's about how important it is and how it can change how people collaborate or not by just giving something a name. So there was this group of people who played a competitive game. It's the same group of people, it's the same game. For some of the rounds, they called this game the community game. For other rounds, they called it the Wall Street game. And if they called it the community game, 71% of the people cooperated. If they called the same game, the same people, the Wall Street game, only 33% of people cooperated. So not only do words matter, how you name a thing matters. So you might think about how you call your project. Do you call it Project Curiosity, a project to find solutions to make our production process more efficient and your job more enjoyable? Or do you call it Project Efficiency, an automation project to make the production process more efficient? It's up to you, but I can only tell you that science proves that words matter. Now, to summarize and give you a little bit outlook. So how do I now build a human-centric team? I made a lot of different examples. I gave you some details. But how do I now build a human-centric team or a human-centric company? So the first is it's a shift in mindset. So you need to build a human-centric mindset throughout your whole team. If you're the only lonely wolf and everybody else thinks differently, it probably will not work. Maybe if you're the top of the company, but even then you might get an understanding which of your team actually really got this. So you might want to put together a little discovery project to test these things in the real world. And then you can scale it throughout the whole company. Because my other claim is if you have a human-centric organization, it will be way more resilient because this is a learning organization. You actually build a learning organization that can adjust to changes. And we are living in a fast, ever-changing world now. So to be truly resilient, you might want to have this learning organization that is able to react. So what's your next step? So the first might be this human-centric mindset. Or it would be because without the mindset, action will not be possible. So you might want to think, how do I create this collaborative environment that's built on trust? And then it has to match your reality. Every company's reality is different. You have different people, you have a different purpose, you have different kinds of money. So your reality is different from everybody else. And then you want to learn how to deal with human challenges. So really building this. Now, we are here to help. So Organic Soul, as Dennis said, really is based on this idea of human connection. We have a very high level of expertise here. So how can we help you? First of all, the easiest and the best way is to give us a call, to set up a meeting, and we just talk. Talk is always free. Let's have a conversation and see if we can help you and how we can help you. Then we really have a passion for that. So while yes, we have to pay our bills, but we also want to share the knowledge. So our website is full of some resources. So we have some publications you can read and download. We have a Substack newsletter you can sign up. And we have a free online course, the Co-Creative Leader, where it's self-paced. You sign up and then on your own time, go through to really think about this mindset, what it means to have this shift in mindset. And then,
The co-creative leader is an amazing course. It really is an amazing course.
thank you, Dennis. He actually is, he was the one who did it first to do this. And then if you think this talk is nice, Denise, but I know you left out a lot because you only had 45 minutes. And I also think I have a few people in my company that really should hear more about that. So we created this 1 day automation reality boot camp. So where we go on site with your core team from operations, engineering, shop floor, you pick the people and we will have a conversation up front who might be the best fit to really think about the basics for a human-centric mindset. What does this return on invest calculation mean for your reality? Because it differs. Um, I want you to experience co-creation, how I call it, which is more than collaboration. And really, we want to keep it real. Practical sessions for real problems, not a lot of philosophy. There are some things you have to understand that will help you, but it should be real. We also think that, it should be easy to get started. So we priced it at a little lower level, $1,900, and then plus the travel expenses. And then we can do other things if you think, oh, that's too much, but if you can come and speak for an hour, that would help us. Or, the 1 day camp is not really our thing, but we have other ideas for on-site workshops where you can help us, or you want to do it remote with some webinars or some courses. And then we are a business consulting firm. So we do business strategy, sales and marketing strategy, and one-on-one leadership coaching. By saying all this, thank you for hanging in with me. I hope you could take some things with you. Again, big thank you. And now I take questions. I would also appreciate later if you can fill out the survey so that I can have an understanding what did you like about the talk, which helped you and which do not. And now we have a question in the chat. Do you think that buyer intent and maturity has also improved over time? It feels like there is a lot more buyer preparedness and urgency this year compared to earlier. What underlying reasons do you see driving that? So in general, the automation robotics industry, the system integrator, the robotics companies, because of automation is a big pressure for a lot of companies. There is a lot of education that every one of us does. So yes, I do think that they are getting better in understanding facts. So like specifically with the cobots, there was a lot of misunderstanding about cobots. So there was a lot of talks, a lot of conversations to get, in general, the whole industry to have a better understanding about, in this case, cobots. So yes, I think it's because everybody really tries to have the best outcome, that most automation people are pretty real and grounded, and they get the knowledge over the years. Any other questions? Okay, if not, I showed you on the last few slides and you already have my email address. The QR code gets you to you can download my contact data in your phone. This is also recorded, so as Dennis said in the very beginning, you will get in the next few days video with the recording. And then I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, and let's talk soon.